when I go to the gym, when I'm in a what I believe a fasted or semi-fasted state where I haven't eaten anything, I've noticed that even if maybe I don't have the energy, the same amount of energy as I would if I had like loaded up on carbs or just eaten earlier that day, I've noticed for myself that I recover really quick. And I don't know if it's like that with anybody else. But for example, I sometimes I will do in a fasted state, I'll like do a really intense taekwondo workout, martial arts workout, or I'll go to the gym and I'll do cardio and weights. But when I'm doing cardio, I always do high intensity interval cardio. So I'll do like high intensity, maybe running or like a stairmaster or, something where I'll go for like high intensity for a minute and then I'll take maybe 30, a minute off, and different ways you can do that. And I've noticed that during those recovery times, my recovery times seem to be a lot better when I'm in a fasted state. And I don't know why that is. I don't know if it's a scientific thing across populations, but at least for me, I have noticed that if like I'm at a taekwondo workout, if I have not eaten anything and I go in there, and my body's used to this now pretty much, so I'll go in there and get a hard workout in. And for one, I can just keep going. But then the other thing is that I've noticed that like, say I'm tired and I'm like, oh, I need to take a break. I feel fantastic after that. It's not like normal, it seems like when I work out, where if I've eaten all throughout the day and I go work out, you take a break from maybe sparring and you just recover. It's like, no, it's like when I take a break from cardio during fasted state, I actually genuinely feel really good. And I don't know why that is, because I have done some really intense workouts in a fasted state where I'm like my shirt is covered in sweat. I've been working out solid for like an hour and a half, hour and a half of like really good, really hard work. And I'll be like, okay, I've got to stop because I'll just keep going. And I'm getting kind of tired anyway. Then I'll stop, and like a minute later, I feel fantastic. So that is something I did not experience before doing this intermittent fasting. Before that, you put in an hour and a half of hard work, and afterwards you're like, oh man, I need to take a break. I need to sit down. I need to chill. I need to get some food. Whereas now I put in some hard work and I'm like, oh, I feel great. Like I actually feel really good. So that's one thing. Another thing I've noticed, and I don't know why this is either, this also could be compounded with other things I've been doing, is it seems like I sweat less when I'm intermittent fasting. So if I have not eaten anything that day, I feel as though my threshold for sweating is higher. So I have to put in more work to sweat. Now, does that mean, I don't know what that means. I don't know why that is. But I have definitely noticed that when I am in a fasted state, it takes me longer to start sweating. Whereas if I've eaten throughout the day or if I've eaten earlier in the day, I start sweating much faster. So whether that has to do with an efficiency thing in the body, like my body stays cooler for longer, I don't know. Now, that could also maybe be related to taking cold showers, because I do cold exposure by taking cold showers. So that might also be a thing. I don't know. But that is what I have been doing on intermittent fasting. Now, how do I keep energy levels up for my workouts if I'm not eating for like 18 hours? What I do is, and this is why I've actually gained some weight, is I have a pretty high fat diet, high fat, high protein. I don't have a lot of carbs, but I do eat a lot of fat, and fat is really calorie dense. I think you get almost 3 times as much. You get more than double the calories from fat as you do from like protein and carbs. So I eat like a lot of cheese, guacamole, or not guacamole, but like, fatty meats, cheeses, sometimes guacamole, things like that. And then I eat a good amount of protein too. So that is, I think, kind of what gives me that allows me to have a good energy level when I'm working out, because I think a lot of people, that would be your problem, right? Like you wouldn't have enough energy stored to like get moving and get going. I don't eat a lot of carbs though, so I'm not sure about how what you that means with the glycogen storage in the muscles, but that is what I've been doing. Now, it seems to be working well for me. I'm actually having to cut back a little bit on what I eat because I have gained a little weight, which is not a big problem, but I just want to not put on too much weight because I'm still competing. So I don't want to have to drop a bunch of weight for tournaments. But it seems to be working well so far. I pretty much feel good throughout the day. It gives me a really good target as well, because that's something that I struggle with, is creating targets for myself. So that is about it. There's a great group you can follow, called Fasting for a Purpose. There's a guy named Dr. Pompa, which he talks a lot about fasting and autophagy. So if you're interested in intermittent fasting, then check out Dr. Pompa. Also check out Ben Greenfield. He does some fasting and does research on fasting. So that's where I first heard about this concept. And there's a lot of interesting materials and resources out there. I also try to do one 24-hour fast a week. That's from listening to Ben Greenfield, with his athletes that he does. The athletes that he works with that want to do fasting, you can't really do. A lot of people like to do these programs where they'll do like a 5-day fast, like once or twice, once every month or two. But as somebody who trains a lot, you can't do, like a 5-day fast just randomly, or you might not be able to do that. So for me, I'll do like a 1-day fast maybe once a week or every other week, 24 hours fast. And the point of that is to get more autophagy, basically help your body cleanse the system of maybe cells that aren't needed and things like that. So once again, it also just kind of helps, I think, with overall fitness and getting your body acclimated to not eating all day. So it's supposed to be good for you, lots of positive benefits. But of course, you got to be careful. You don't want your intermittent fasting to turn into anorexia. So, obviously eat. And just because you're doing intermittent fasting doesn't mean you can eat whatever you want either. So I tend to stick to, like I said, higher proteins and fats, more higher fats and proteins. I do get some sugars from dried fruits. And I also, what else do I do? Oh, I always try to make sure to get my vegetables. I try to eat at least some vegetables every day, usually broccoli. And that's what I've been up to in terms of my intermittent fasting, and it seems to be working well. I plan on continuing this trend well into 2019. We'll see where it takes me. Anyway, that is it. Oh, let me tie this in. I was doing a little research on Nassim Taleb, because I'm like totally infatuated with his book, Anti-Fragile. And in his, I wanted to see if he talked about anything about, like, in the book, he talks about how debt is a part of being fragile, right? Like if you have debt, then that makes you more fragile, because if you're subject to like if I lost my job and I have a mortgage, then then I am in a much worse position than if I lost my job and owe nobody anything. So that's the idea that I was looking into, was his opinions on a mortgage, like what he thought about home ownership and people taking out like 30-year loans. And I just came across an article that he did where the interviewer asked him how you can be more anti-fragile in your daily life. And the things he mentioned were deadlifting, which is something I do, cold temperature exposure to cold, which is something that I do, and intermittent fasting, and also just challenging yourself. And his reason behind that were that those are stressors on the body, that like deadlifting, not just doing like machine workouts, but from what I've done research on, really any kind of weightlifting is beneficial. But basically, providing a stressor to your body is improves strength, improves performance, improves health. Then intermittent fasting he recommended, and for the benefits of basically your body improves its health by getting a stressor. So that way, if something happened to you, say you were in a situation where you didn't eat for a day or a couple days, like you're in a better position, right? And also your health is just better from engaging in these activities. So I thought that was interesting, that I've kind of been following these lines of fitness reasoning independently of Nassim Taleb, and sure enough, they seem to dovetail with his idea of anti-fragility as well. And I mean, I love deadlifts. It's one of my favorite exercises to do over the past year. So anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Maybe I'll continue on about Nassim Taleb and anti-fragility later. But that's it. Thank you, everybody. Remember, get your shit together. Let's do it. Peace. Hey, everybody. This ad is about a podcast called A Little About a Lot podcast. I have not seen it, so take it at your own risk. A Little About a Lot is a variety show by YouTubers. Kelsey and Becky behind the channel The Sorry Girls. Kelsey and Becky spill tea about their personal lives, talk about the struggles of relationships and dating. Becky is married and Kelsey is not. Oh my. Research their favorite celebs from the 90s, answer audience questions, interview some badass people, and more. We want to challenge perspectives and leave our audience feeling refreshed, inspired, and with a little more knowledge about a lot. Search your podcast app for A Little About a Lot podcast and subscribe to the A Little About a Lot podcast. And that is it for this. Hey everybody, welcome to another broadcast from your host, Taylor. I'm going to update you on my intermittent fasting. So intermittent fasting has become extremely popular, or it seems to be becoming very popular recently. It's been around for a long time, but the idea is that you restrict your eating time throughout the day. So there's a lot of different kind of diet fads going on right now. One of them is keto, which I never have really tried, but have kind of skewed more in that direction. There's paleo, there's all this stuff. I've kind of stuck to intermittent fasting for a couple of reasons. In some previous podcast episodes, I've talked about why I do it, and I'll just go ahead and lay it out again. One reason why I do it is beyond just health ramifications is the mental aspect of it, because I've really been into improving my mental state and trying to increase my mental toughness. And I do believe that intermittent fasting is something that is good for that, because it is difficult to not eat for certain periods throughout the day. It's difficult to restrict your eating to only a few hours a day. So that has been a big part of it. And actually, let me rewind here real quick. Intermittent fasting is when you only eat within a certain amount of time throughout the day. It's very popular or common for people to do a 12, I think, what is that? A lot of people will do a 14-hour fast maybe, and then they'll have a window of 10 hours of eating. So that would be like you stop eating from, say, maybe 8 p.m. at night, you stop, and then you don't start again until 10 a.m. the next day is when you can start eating again. And you put all your eating within that 10 hours. I started off with the 14 off and 10 on. Then I went to about 16, 15, 16 hours. Now I routinely do, because of my scheduling, I routinely do about 17 to 20 hours of fasting a day. And then I usually eat within a small, like, 4 hour window. And part of that is just because of my scheduling and the way it kind of works out. But I also have been working out during my fasted state. So that is kind of some basics about intermittent fasting. It's really just time restricted eating, and you're supposed to get some benefits from that. One of them is I've already told you I have been doing it for one reason is for mental improvements. Another reason people do it is because of the physical health benefits, like something called autophagy, which is when, I guess, after a certain period of time, when your body is not processing or digesting and breaking down foods, that your body starts to get rid of waste material, and it gets rid of maybe like bad cells and proteins. Disclaimer, I'm not an expert, but that's what I've read. And so it can help kind of keep your body in a more peak level of conditioning. So I have been doing that. Some people do it for weight loss. Supposedly, if you do intermittent fasting, and it can also help with decreasing fat while helping you increase muscle, depending on how you do it. But my primary reasons have been the mental and the physical benefits of autophagy. And so I have, like I said, I started off a few months ago doing about the 10 hours eating and then the 14 hours not eating. So that graduated to now, where I'm doing about regularly between 15 to, I would say usually between 15 or 16 to 20 hours of not eating, and then eating within a 4 to maybe 6 hour window. And I have noticed some benefits. So one of those is definitely mental clarity. I don't know if you guys have experience with this, but I did have experience in the past with fasting for making weight for Taekwondo tournaments. And so, whenever I did those when I was a little younger, I noticed that I just was better in work and school. My focus was up. I had like increased focus. Once you get past the hunger stage, your energy levels are really good and stable. So I had some previous experiences with fasting for making weight for a tournament, like maybe a day or two before the tournament, maybe cut down or like not eat, which is maybe not healthy, maybe not the best, but that's what I did. And when I would fast, like I said, I noticed that it was easier, like I remembered things better. I just remember my cognitive performance, like at school. This was later years of high school, like 17, 18. My performance at school was at a pretty high level during those times, when you might not expect it because you're hungry. So there's that aspect. Now I knew about that already with myself. So when I started doing this recently, I knew that was a possible side effect. Is when you do research on intermittent fasting, you will find that it is very common for, once people are able to cope with the hunger itself, that you do have generally an increased level of energy. You're able to focus better. And it seems counterintuitive, but from my experience, that is definitely true. So that's what happens to me. I get a lot more work done before I eat than after. Because how many of you guys out there, you eat something, what happens? You spike your insulin, right? A lot of times you eat something with some carbs, and you get that initial maybe kind of push of energy. Then you get that lethargic feeling. It's that feeling that everyone talks about after lunch when you go to work, right? You go to work, you go to lunch, you come back, you don't want to work for like a couple hours. A lot of that has to do with what we're eating, and then also the fact that, you're eating a kind of a sizable amount during the day. Your body's always having to process incoming food. So for me, my current schedule, since I am an entrepreneur, or, I do a lot of work from my apartment, when I teach online, I'll teach like 8 hours straight now, right? And I'll maybe do some other work that I'm working on, some other projects, and then I'll hit the gym. And when I hit the gym, when I come back is the first time I eat. And a lot of times that is probably between 2 and 3. And I'll actually get all my eating from in between around 3 to 5, really. I mean, I don't know if this is a good idea. Maybe it's not. I'm not sure. But my eating window is really about 2 hours, from about maybe 2 to 5 or 3 to 5 every day. That's how it has been. And it might seem weird, like maybe I would be tired or dying, and that's definitely not the case. So while I'm teaching, it seems to work great. I mean, I drink coffee while I'm teaching, and I do that. I drink coffee and water just until it's time to eat. So what I have gathered is, yes, I do believe that when I'm not eating, I have more focus. I seem to have very stable energy levels. Every once in a while, of course, you're going to get tired just because, scheduling and working. But in general, my energy levels have been higher. My focus has been better. And when I go to the gym, something that I did not expect. So I like to say, kind of like an amateur athlete, right? Like, I'm not a professional, but I train all the time for tournaments and things like that. So I'm at the gym usually 6 to 7 days a week. And my off days, I'm usually doing something still. So I have noticed that